Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into gear, you could say, and taking a close look at the global driving apparel market, specifically where it stands in 2025.
Hmm.
We've got a pretty detailed market report here. Think of it as our roadmap. And the plan is to give you the key insights.
Right.
Whether you're in the industry or maybe just curious about what's happening in this space, we want to do it without you having to read through pages and pages of data.
Exactly. Consider this your fast track. We've gone through the 2025 Global Driving Apparel Market Report looking at size, growth forecasts, who's buying where, key trends,
Yeah.
basically boiling it down.
Okay, let's jump right in then. What kind of size are we talking about for this market globally, and where is it headed?
Sure. So for 2025, the estimate puts the global market at USD 251.5 million. So quite substantial.
16.2 billion, roughly.
Yeah. And here's where it gets interesting. The projection is for strong growth. It's expected to hit USD 2,723.1 million by 2033.
Wow, that's a pretty big leap. What does that look like year on year? Is there a growth rate?
There is. We're looking at a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 7.00% projected between 2025 and 2033.
7%, okay.
Which, for a market this size, 7% growth each year on average.
Yeah.
It points to really steady, consistent expansion. Lots of opportunity there.
Right, steady growth. So we know it's growing overall, but are certain parts of the world like leading the pack? Or where are the biggest markets right now?
Definitely. North America is currently the largest market region. It holds over 37% of the global share.
Over a third, okay.
Yeah, translating to about USD 613.06 million in 2025, and it's still growing at a respectable rate, 5.5% CAGR projected.
Okay, North America leading, that kind of tracks with, the car culture there. Any
Well,
specific countries driving that?
Well, the U.S. is the main engine in North America. It's valued at USD 407.44.30 million for 2025, growing at 5.3%.
Right.
And the report flags things like, quote, strong high purchasing power and growing fashion consciousness. So people have money to spend and they want to look good while driving.
Makes sense.
Canada is also significant, around USD 721 million, and actually a slightly higher growth rate, 6.3%. The driver there seems to be more around demand for ethically and sustainably made apparel.
Oh, interesting. A different angle there.
Yeah, a bit of a conscious consumerism trend.
Yeah.
And Mexico comes in around USD 547 million, growing at 6%.
Okay, so North America's clearly number one. What about Europe? I assume they're a big piece of the pie, too.
They absolutely are. Europe's the second largest market, holding over 29% of the share. That's about USD 412.94 million in 2025.
Okay. And their growth?
Their overall projected CAGR is around 6%, so still solid growth.
Any particular European countries really pushing that forward?
Yeah, a few standouts. The UK market is notable, about USD 792 million with a strong 6.8% CAGR.
Higher than the regional average.
Right, and the report links that to demand for sustainable fashion, like in Canada, but also significantly internet purchasing trends. So online shopping is really fueling it there. Germany is actually the largest single market in Europe, over USD 933 million, growing at 6.2%. Their focus seems to be more on like protective gear and road safety. A bit more pragmatic, maybe.
Right, safety first.
Exactly. Then you have France, about USD 433 million, growing at 5.2%. And Russia and Italy are also mentioned as key markets, around USD 730 million and USD 405 million, respectively.
Got it. So North America and Europe are the big players currently, but you mentioned growth. Where's the fastest growth happening?
Well, that would be the Asia-Pacific region, hands down.
Okay.
Right? It holds around 24% of the global market, which is about USD 3,900 million in 2025.
Yeah.
But is projected to grow at a year-to-day of 9.7%. That's the fastest by a significant margin.
Wow, 9.7%. That's almost double the U.S. rate. What's driving that boom in Asia Pacific?
It's a combination of things. China's the regional leader, a huge market at over USD 1.6 billion, growing at 9.2%. The report points to increasing disposable incomes and technological breakthroughs.
So more money, new tech adoption.
Exactly. But India's growth is even faster, percentage-wise. It's a smaller market currently, around USD 390 million, but growing at an incredible 11.6% CAGR.
11.6.
Yeah. Attributed largely to increasing urbanization, more people in cities, more traffic, and a growing consciousness around road safety. Japan and South Korea are also strong contributors, growing at 8.2% and 8.8%, respectively.
Okay, that regional breakdown is super helpful. North America and Europe are big. Asia Pacific is rocketing up. What about other regions? Briefly.
Yeah, the report touches on them. South America is around USD 617 million, growing at 7.7%. Brazil is a key driver there.
Okay.
The Middle East, about USD 650 million, growing quite fast at 8.3%, with Saudi Arabia showing strong growth. And Africa, smaller at USD 357 million, but still growing at a healthy 7.3%.
So growth pretty much across the board, just faster in some places. Let's shift gears a bit. What kinds of products are we talking about within this market? Is it all just helmets and leathers?
Good question. So the market's segmented by product. Currently, protection gear is the biggest segment. You know, helmets, gloves, body armor, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Makes sense. Safety is fundamental.
Right, the essentials.
But interestingly, the report highlights clothing like jackets, pants, suits that are maybe less purely protective but more about style and comfort while driving. That's actually the fastest growing segment.
Faster than protection gear. Huh. Why is that?
Well, it seems to be a mix. One, there's just more demand for apparel that looks good and works well for driving, not just pure function. Two, think about the rise of motorsports as recreation, track days, adventure driving.
Mhm.
Style becomes part of the experience. Really.
Yeah, people want the look, the performance feel, even if they aren't pro racers.
Exactly. Function meeting fashion on the road or track.
Yeah. And what about materials? Is traditional leather still the go-to or are other things coming up?
Leather still holds the largest share. You know, its reputation for durability and protection is long-standing. It's classic. However, just like with clothing, the fastest growing category here is synthetic materials.
Okay, why the surge in synthetics?
It really comes down to advancements in textile technology. Modern synthetics can offer really compelling benefits. Sometimes they're more flexible, more breathable, which is huge for comfort, and often they come in at a lower price point than high-quality leather.
Right, so tech is making synthetics a really viable, attractive alternative.
Precisely. They're hitting a sweet spot for a lot of consumers.
Okay, products, materials. What about the vehicles? Is this market mostly for bikers or car drivers or?
The report segments by vehicle outlook, too.
Yeah,
Currently, two-wheelers, motorcycles, scooters account for the largest market share.
that makes sense. You generally need more specific gear on a bike.
Exactly. Helmets, jackets, gloves, boots. It's much more of a necessity.
Yeah.
But following the trend, the four-wheeler segment is growing rapidly.
Okay, so car-related apparel is catching up.
It seems so. And it ties back to what we said about recreational driving. Think off-roading, track days, even just enthusiasts wanting specific driving shoes or gloves. The demand for specialized four-wheeler apparel is definitely on the rise.
Okay, so we've got a good picture of the what and where. Let's talk about the why. What are the big forces pushing this market forward? The main drivers.
The report lays out a few key ones.
Mm-hmm.
First, as we've kind of discussed, is that growing interest in recreational driving and motorsports. It just boosts demand for gear that hits that sweet spot of safety, performance, and increasingly style.
Right.
Second is digital transformation and e-commerce. It's just easier than ever to find and buy this stuff online. Brands are using omni-channel approaches, data analytics.
Yeah.
It makes the buying experience smoother.
And probably opens up niche markets, too.
Absolutely. And third, just a general growing global awareness around road safety. Regulations tighten, people become more aware, and that naturally increases the uptake of protected gear.
You mentioned e-commerce. The report specifically called out Instagram in the U.S. Why that platform?
Yeah, it highlights Instagram as a key platform, particularly for clothing manufacturers targeting the U.S. market. It's down to its huge user base, right? And it's highly visual. Brands can showcase products really effectively, engage directly with potential buyers, use influencers. It's a powerful tool for them.
Makes sense. Okay, so those are the drivers. What about things holding the market back? Any restraints?
Yes, a couple are mentioned. One is simply the cost. Some of this specialized driving apparel can be pretty expensive, especially the high-end stuff.
Yeah, premium gear isn't cheap.
Right, and that can be a barrier, especially when they're often, local manufacturers offering cheaper, maybe less technical alternatives. The other major restraint noted is the rise of counterfeit goods.
Ah, fakes. Always a problem.
Yeah, it can really hurt legitimate brands, obviously, but also erode consumer trust if people end up with substandard, unsafe products.
Definitely a challenge. Okay, looking forward then, what are the big trends shaping the future of driving apparel?
Well, one really fascinating trend is the integration of technology into the apparel. We're talking sensors for vital signs.
In the clothing.
Yeah, build right in.
Right.
Or GPS tracking, connectivity features that link the gear to your phone or bike or car. It's about enhancing safety, providing real-time data.
Wow, smart apparel for the road.
Pretty much. The other major trend is just the continued growth of online sales. It keeps opening up opportunities for brands, makes it easier to sell niche products, high-end stuff, limited editions, and influencer marketing plays a big role there too.
So tech and online sales are really changing the game. Now, there's another big factor the report dives into: tariffs. Specifically, these 2025 Liberation Day tariffs in the U.S. How are they impacting things?
Yeah, that's a significant external shockwave hitting the market. These tariffs, introduced in 2025, are quite broad. They range from 10% up to 46% depending on the country.
46%. Wow.
Yeah. And specifically, there are blanket tariffs on Chinese imports at 34% and 25% on steel, aluminum, and auto parts, which can indirectly affect gear too. Driving apparel itself as a consumer good got hit with a 25% tariff.
Okay, 25%. So what does that actually do to the industry? What are the effects?
Well, the direct impacts are pretty clear. Increased production costs for companies importing materials or finished goods. That often leads to sourcing delays, and it adds to inflationary pressure. Ultimately, it often means higher prices for you, the consumer.
Right. Costs go up, prices go up. How are companies responding?
They're scrambling, basically. The report mentions several strategies. Some are looking at nearshoring, moving production closer to the U.S., maybe Mexico or Canada. Others are just passing on the cost by raising prices.
Okay.
A big one is diversifying suppliers, trying not to have all their eggs in one basket, especially China. The report actually names Nike and IKEA as examples of companies expanding production in places like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, partly for this reason.
Reducing reliance on single countries.
Exactly. And another strategy is called in-market for market, basically, trying to produce goods within the region where they'll be sold to avoid crossing borders subject to high tariffs.
It sounds like a major strategic headache for these companies.
It definitely is. And the report really stresses the importance of market research in this climate. Companies need to, map out their suppliers, analyze costs meticulously, maybe even redesign products to use different materials or processes, and figure out how much they can actually raise prices before consumers balk.
So navigating this tariff environment is crucial.
Absolutely critical. It requires a lot of agility and really good data.
Okay, one last area. Who are the big players? Who are the main companies competing in this driving apparel space?
It's a competitive landscape for
Yeah.
sure. You've got major global brands alongside strong regional specialists. The report mentions several key names.
Guy too.
Puma SE is mentioned. They've been extending collaborations. Racing Force SPA, ASICS, their Indian division specifically. Adidas AG, they recently launched a new sportswear brand. Scott Sports SA, VF Corporation.
VF Corp owns quite a few brands, right?
They do, yeah, including Nike Inc., which the report highlights for their origami tech. Then there's a Steady S Accessories, known more for helmets perhaps, and Leet Corporation, focusing heavily on protective gear.
So a mix of big sportswear giants and more specialized companies.
Exactly. And they tend to dominate through, broad product lines, strong distribution networks, and ongoing innovation.
Okay, great. So let's try and wrap this up. If you had to boil down the key takeaways from this deep dive into the 2025 driving apparel market, what would they be?
I'd say first, it's a large and growing market, definitely healthy, with significant potential still ahead. Second, Asia Pacific is the region to watch for the most dynamic growth.
Right.
Third, the market's being shaped by this blend of factors. Rising interest in driving activities, the power of e-commerce, cool new tech being integrated into gear, and importantly, these major shifts in global trade and tariffs that companies have to navigate.
A complex but growing picture. Really fascinating stuff. Okay, here's a final thought maybe for you, the listener, to chew on. As technology and fashion continue to merge in driving apparel, and with this unpredictable global trade situation, what kind of unexpected innovations or maybe challenges might pop up in this market over the next, say, 10 years? How might those trends connect with things you're interested in or perhaps your own industry?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. And while this deep dive gives hopefully a solid overview, there's always more detail if you wanted to dig into specific regions or product types or what individual companies are up to. Lots more layers there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for walking us through that complex landscape. Really insightful.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.